Okay, we're going to now return to City Club, to Jim Foster, City Club Executive Director, for some mid-program announcements.
Thank you, Dan. Today at the City Club of Cleveland, we are listening to a debate between Commissioner Peter Lawson Jones, representing Issue 5, and Mayor Martin Zanotti, who is the leading advocate for Issue 6. And now we would like to proceed with the audience question and answer portion of this debate. Holding the microphones today are City Club Assistant Director of Development, Marcella Brown, and Education and Outreach Coordinator, Deborah Agosti. Let's return to moderator, Dan Moulthrop. And I'll do the close because it takes you.
Okay, who has the first question then? Over here.
Commissioner Jones, would you tell me a little bit about what the process is going to be for the review, what the timeline is going to be, and what is the diversity of philosophy in your recommended slate?
Okay. And how long do I have to respond?
1 minute.
1 minute? My goodness. Can barely say Peter Lawson Jones in 1 minute. But in response to your question, and probably most importantly, the Issue 5 slate that I happen to support has already made a certain pledge. They have pledged, number one, to follow and adhere to their the constitutional requirement that they draft a charter. They've also pledged that over the next year that they will host throughout the county public hearings where they can receive input from everyone in the county and all of the stakeholders. They have promised that the charter that they draft will represent real reform, and to the extent possible, given state constraints and funding constraints, will address the issue of economic development. They've also pledged that they won't run for any of the offices that are created by the charter. And finally, they've said that not only will we draft a charter, we will place it on the ballot in November 2010 for the consideration of the voters. And I have pledged that whatever comes out of that Issue 5 process, even if it's something that I have personal disagreements with one provision or the other, that I will support it. So that's the process of the Issue 5 that Issue 5 would take.
Mayor Zanotti, I'd like to ask you to explain why that's not a good thing, that process.
It's very simple. It says, let's study it. What is it that we don't know about what's wrong with county government right now? What is it that we don't know about what needs to be done in our region? We've been studying it for 15 years. What is the magic number of years it takes to come up with solutions? And what we're saying is 15 years, 3 studies is enough. It's time for action now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I should have said this before, by the way, that this section of our program will have questions addressed to a specific representative that gets a 1 minute limit with 30 seconds from the other. Questions addressed to both get a minute response from each. And of course, as always, we thank you for phrasing your question as a question and not a speech.
Yeah, good morning. Both of you address the importance of economic development for the region. And when I say region, I mean more than just Cuyahoga County. So my question really to you is what kind of role, maybe leadership role, do you visualize for the new Cuyahoga County government in collaborating with adjacent local counties and cities?
I think we'd like to hear from both of you on that. Mayor Zanotti, you first.
Okay, thank you. I think Cuyahoga County is arguably the most powerful county, the largest county in the state. Ought to set the tone for how things work in the state. But I think for it to be in a leadership role, it truly has to have its own act together. So I think it should be an engine that helps to promote economic development throughout the entire northeastern Ohio region. But to do that, we have to get our act in place to be able to promote it with our own county first. So I think this is a 2-stage process. I think, first of all, we have to shift the focus of county government to one of economic development and human services. Secondly, fund it appropriately. And then third, develop the plans to make it work. And when we've accomplished those things, then we can say, now we can assume a leadership role and help to promote inter-county growth.
Commissioner Jones?
Very quickly, one thing I think that's important to understand is the vast majority of funds that come into the county are earmarked and dedicated for certain purposes. Health and Human Services, the administration of our judicial system, and as a consequence, there's only so much money that's available for economic development. However, saying that, our general fund is $355 million. Our total budget is about $1.5 billion. Out of that, 82% of our general funds are non-discretionary. Of the balance of the rest, that 18%, 45% is expended on economic development. A substantial portion of the few and discrete numbers of discretionary funds that are available to us. When you look at issue 6 very quickly, issue 6 says we'll have a director of development. We already have that. Issue 6 says we'll have a department of development. We already have that. It says we'll have an economic development commission. There are many people in this room who are well aware that we already have something called Cuyahoga Next Advisors that's been active for the last 5 years, advising the county government on how to expend our funds in a way that promotes and advances economic development, and has created such programs as innovation zones and North Coast Technology Opportunity Funds. We're already doing this, and we're doing it in collaboration with others.
I'd like to pursue this for another minute each, because I think this issue of economic development is incredibly important. Mayor Zanotti, what would the Issue 6 Charter do in terms of economic development that, as Commissioner Jones said, we're not already doing?
One, establish economic development as a priority. We can say that the current county government does economic development things, but the reality is less than 1% of the employees that work for the county government work in economic development. We've got less than 60 employees work in economic development. We've got over 250 that work in the auditor's office. So you streamline and you build the county government structure that reflects the needs of the people, and then you can reinvest dollars. Secondly, you've got to take those dollars and reinvest them in plans, and that's what we call for a 5-year plan to be developed, an economic development authority made up of people appointed by various constituencies. We need a plan, we need to streamline the government, and then we need to fund it to make it a reality.
Commissioner Jones, I'm going to go out on a limb here and assume for a second that you do believe economic development should be a priority. What guarantee?
You're not out on a limb on that.
Okay. What guarantees then do voters have that Issue 5, another year of study with an uncertain outcome, would guarantee a prioritization of economic development in the future of Cuyahoga County government?
Well, again, and I articulated this earlier, the slate of candidates that I'm supporting has already said that economic development, to the extent that it's possible, is going to be a driving force in shaping the charter that they promised and pledged will be on the ballot in 2010. And once again, we already have something called Cuyahoga Next Advisors. Virtually every month, 50 or 60 people who are involved in economic development, from the private sector, the public sector, nonprofit, healthcare, eleemosynary institutions, all gathered together and have advised the county over a period now of 5 years on how we can be the most aggressive and active in economic development in this community. One of the key arguments that's been made by Issue 6 proponents is that by streamlining county government, there's going to be more money for economic development. Very quickly, early on this, I quote from Cranes. Early in the discussions, Issue 6 supporters estimated the reforms they proposed would save between $10 million and $40 million a year in county operating costs, and that they would have a more specific number later in the campaign. However, campaign manager Jan Purdy, somebody I really like a lot, have a lot of admiration for, told Crane's Cleveland Business last week that the group will not be making any prediction of the amount of money its county government plan will save. We cannot quantify the savings, she said. We think it's prudent not to put a number on it.
Okay,
there are no
Jones.
savings to fund economic development programs in the Issue 6 proposal.
Had you not been quoting somebody else, I probably would have cut you off. Commissioner Jones, a quick yes or no question. Do you feel that we're getting enough currently out of the county's economic development efforts? Are we getting enough out of them? Yes or no?
I can give you a quick answer. It won't be yes or no. Given the amount of funds that are available to expend on economic development, yes, we're maximizing what we have available towards that end.
Okay, let's take the next question.
Mayor, where do you see yourself 2 years from now in the mix of Issue 6? Is Issue 6 legally, I'm not an attorney, can you reform your reform idea? How easily can you change it? And lastly, I'm a little bit tainted by the Plain Dealers FBI coverage. Are there people that, personally, I don't want to get behind involved somewhere in the scenes on this issue 6?
On it, behind the scenes involved in issue 6?